It was only a few months after the Israel-Iran nuclear exchange that the news started to filter outside of academic and scientific realms. It's hard to recognize what's going on outside when you're too busy looking at your roommates fighting. Proof of extraterrestrial life didn't come as a worldwide shock, but as a slow, gradual trickle that took months to turn into a river. The object, the probe, the UFO, whatever they wanted to call it, something no one outside of my department and high levels of key world governments ever got to look at it anyway. Likely never will. Something wandered into our solar system, just chirping away its little radio and EM signals, and promptly took up into orbit around Jupiter. It took years of back and forth on whether or not this thing was legitimate, but it was there, just pinging away its repeating signal. You didn't need a government satellite to pick it up. Just about any radio receiver on the planet with a clear line of sight on a cloudless day could catch it. Just these faint clicks and chirps. After a while, it became clear that this thing was communicating some base 12 mathematical signal. We could copy the whole message down, but we couldn't make any sense of it. Maybe we should have just left it there. Maybe we should have just lived out our existence in blind happiness. I can understand why we've kept this secret from the world now. In 2034, the US government finally scored enough political intrigue to spearhead a giant, multinational program. Jupiter was too far out to send people, but a robot. We could launch a robotic satellite to Jupiter, put it in orbit next to this thing, and then pick it up and bring it back home. I think we kinda felt pressured to do it, since the Chinese were working on their own recovery plan. The US, Britain, Russia, France, Germany, Japan, and South Korea all contributed. Eventually, the Chinese came around and threw it in with us when they realized that they weren't going to beat us there. 11 years. The unmanned mission was slated to take 11 years. 4 years out, 2 in orbit, and 5 years back. I remember how exciting I was. I remember how excited I was when we watched the video of the recovery shuttle gliding in, its alien cargo intact. I had spent 8 years working towards my degree in xenomathematics, specifically to be one of the first people to get to study this thing. I was chosen out of a field of tens of thousands to work at the AORC facility in Florida. The probe, black, shiny, covered in a Rosetta Stone of symbols and diagrams etched into its hull. It was powered by some kind of laser fusion device that our engineering department claimed was borderline self-perpetuating. It could run for millions of years, longer even. That wasn't my department, though. I was on the team deciphering what this thing was trying to tell us. And with the key right in front of us, we went after it like men possessed, barely sleeping and eating for months and then years. Whoever built it was smart. They knew that whomever found this thing couldn't translate their language. There's no corollaries. What might be as common as a rock to them, they could reference something that we've never even seen before. They used math. They used so much math to diagram and display what they were trying to show us. It just takes so much time. And then you get into the layers of the message. Interweaved data. Stacked on top of data on top of data. Hundreds of layers of information, going side to side and up and down and diagonally. Terabytes of data in a millisecond of transmission, but they left us the directions for how to unravel it. At first, the images were crude, like stick drawings. They were bipedal, like us, but taller, like birds almost. I'm not sure how to describe them. They weren't ugly or frightening. They were bipedal, like us but taller, like birds almost. I'm not sure how to describe them. They weren't ugly or frightening, just tall, slender beings with beaks and feathers. They had civilization, vehicles, vast space-faring vessels the size of small moons that they traveled across the cosmos in. The pictures became more detailed as we decrypted deeper into the message, like photographs, beautiful nebulas, giant gas giants with mesmerizing colors, even sprawling vistas captured on Earth-like planets, similar to their world of origin. Then, sadness, loneliness. We could watch videos of them exploring thousands of worlds, never understanding their language fully, but you could see it on them, sense it on them. Thousands, millions of worlds. They spread across the galaxy, calling out for anyone, begging the stars to show them a companion, a friend, a race to share the crushing infinity of space and time. But nothing. Despair. Decline. We watched, and now felt their pain. If you decipher too much data, you won't just watch their message. You smell it, taste it, touch it. I've tasted the rains on 100 different worlds through their recordings. I touched the prickly soil of a scorched inner planet around a red giant. I felt the emotion of wonder looking upon a supernova from a planet in orbit. Eons, a million years of searching for naught. So many planets with life, but nothing that was alive, you know? Nothing with a soul and aspirations, and that spark to become something greater. Fish, plants, mushrooms, deer, plenty of that out there. But nothing with the capacity to ascend beyond their station. Feeling what they felt after countless millennia of searching. It was like tearing out your heart. They just lost hope and faded to nothing. Their people dying out. Their monuments washed away by time. By their charts and maps, they ceased to exist sometime around when the Earth got hit with the celestial body that would become our moon. That probe had been drifting between solar systems for hundreds of millions, billions of years. There's nothing else out there. There's nobody else. Anywhere. Not anymore. That's what the message was. A eulogy they wrote for themselves. The chances of sentient, intelligent life evolving are so remote that it might happen 2 or 3 times throughout the existence of an entire galaxy. The chances of meeting another race like us that looks to the sky and sees hope, sees possibility, it will never happen. We can spread across the void as they did, fill the galaxies with our songs and breath. Our spark might very well blossom into a flame and a wildfire that sweeps the Milky Way. But eventually, the flames die down. The excitement dies. The hope fades and withers. And then you die. The species, humanity, all that we accomplish and build and create will just absorb into the ground and suns, and no one will ever see what we were, who we were. We buried that damn thing in a shaft of concrete in a desert where no one will ever look for it. Better to have that dream, to let mankind hopefully reach out into the stars one day. We'll let our ancestors deal with carving our own tombstones. Do you feel safe in your house? Does your house have secure doors and windows? Do you trust your neighbors, if you even have any? I ask these questions, but I already know the answers. I know so much about you. I know how you tick. I know how you talk. I know what makes you happy. I know what makes you angry. And I know what makes you afraid. I've been watching you since you were just a young one. My, how you've grown. You used to be afraid when you were just a little one. You hated going to sleep until your nightlight was on. No matter. I will just hide in the shadows that your bright wall casts. I am quiet. I am still. Oops. Was that creak on the wall a bit loud? Just blame it on the house settling, or mice, and fall asleep. You got older, started to believe less and less in me. You always had a scientific answer for the creaks and the warps. They were the pipes and the air conditioning. That's perfectly okay with me. I don't gain or lose power due to you believing in me. Your fears were still so easy to exploit. I know how much you hate spiders. Here, this is a nightmare about them. I know that test tomorrow is stressing you out as well. Here's a dream about that too. You must think that you are so strong that you can take on the world. Your parents say that the world is your oyster and that you have all that it takes to be whatever you want. All I see is just another sack of meat that fears the unknown. I know, because I am the unknown. You may find yourself to have a night in which you are reminded of my ultimate and infinite power. The power that you will never fully understand. The power that you will never reach. You will find yourself waking up from horrifying nightmares of my own creation, and you will look around your room. I will still be watching, staring at you, waiting to finally meet you. You may fall asleep again. I creep closer, bringing the darkness and the shadow closer with me. I will start at your feet. You wake up again, and I crouch underneath the bed. You may feel that the room has gotten darker and more enclosed. Don't mind that. Just go back to sleep. As you fall to sleep again, I resume by going underneath the blankets that you call to protect you. The protection that you normally feel from wrapping yourself in those sheets will soon become your everlasting prison. I creep closer and closer as you start to toss and turn from yet another nightmare that I have manufactured from the years of my research. However, I made sure that you will not wake up. Not quite yet. I slither all the way up to the edge of the blankets. I also intensify that unpleasant dream that you're experiencing as you wake up once more. I really must say that I find so much pleasure in intensifying nightmares. Once more, you look around the room, noticing that it is much darker. I can see you. I am just a foot or so from your face. You may never see me, but my pearly white eyes see you. You start to drift off to sleep once more as I breathe out just a bit. You notice right away as your body starts to shake and you start to sweat. You slowly pull the covers down until you start to make out my true features. You immediately notice my slightly troubled mouth. I know, I tried to clean up a bit before my grand entrance, but a few stitches that hold my mouth together may have fought loose a bit as I creeped up to you. You start to scream as I breathe out the last thing that you will ever hear. The sound has been described as being the middle of a major windstorm in the middle of a large, open space. I make sure that you fall asleep right after. However, sometimes you might just faint. That saves me some time. I creep back out into my domain, in the shadows, to watch you as you sleep once more. I am the shadows that dance across your room at night. I am the banging pipes and the spider in your dreams. I am the wind that feels a bit too close for comfort. I am the ultimate fear. You will always hear my cry as long as you live in this dump that you call a home. I am the tormentor of those who refuse to abide by my rule. I am the Umbra. We had just moved into a little ranch house in the suburbs. Storybook neighborhood. Quiet, friendly neighbors, picket fences, the whole 9 yards. Suffice it to say that this was supposed to be a new start for me, a recently single dad, and my 3-year-old son. A time to move on from the previous year's drama and stress. I viewed the thunderstorm as a metaphor for this fresh start. One last show of theatrics before the dirt and grime of the past would be washed away. My son loved it anyway. Even with the power out, it was the first big storm he'd ever seen. Flashes of lightning flooded the bare rooms of our house, imparting unpacked boxes with long, creepy shadows. And he jumped and squealed as the thunder boomed. It was well past his bedtime before he'd finally settled down enough to go to sleep. The next morning I found him awake in bed and smiling. "I watched the lightning at my window," he proudly announced. A few mornings later, he told me the same thing. "You're silly," I said. "It didn't storm last night. You were only dreaming." "Oh," he seemed somewhat disheartened. I ruffled his hair and told him not to worry. There should be another storm soon. Then it became a pattern. He would tell me how he watched the lightning outside his window at least twice a week, despite there being no storms. Recurring dreams of that first memorable thunderstorm, I figured. It's easy to hate myself in hindsight. Everybody assured me there's nothing I could have done. No way I could have known. But I'm supposed to be the guardian of my child, and these are useless words of comfort. I constantly relive that morning, making my coffee, pouring milk over my cereal, and picking up the newspaper to read about the pedophile local authorities had just arrested. It was front-page stuff. Apparently this guy would select a young target, usually a boy, stake out their house for a while, and take flash photos of them through their window while they slept. Sometimes he did more. My stomach sank as the connection was made. At the time, it was merely something from a child's imagination. In retrospect, it is the scariest thing I've ever heard. About a week before the predator was caught, my son came up to me in his pajamas. "Guess what?" he asked. "What?" "No more lightning at my window." I played along. "Oh, that's nice. It finally died down, huh?" "No. Now, it's in my closet." You're not going to believe what happened to me. I was at an unusually long red light at about 3 o'clock. I swear, the traffic light wasn't staying red by coincidence. Anyway, I was sitting there, thinking about how busy my day would be tomorrow, when a knock on my driver's side window made me jump. After I turned to see what it was, my heart skipped a beat. The nuisance was a kid, about 15 years old, who was wearing entirely black. What really startled me, however, were his eyes. They were as dark as his clothes. I don't mean the kid's irises were black. I mean he had no whiteness in his eyes at all. I didn't want to open the window. Who in their right mind would? My gut instinct was telling me to just go through the red light. But I decided to roll down the window anyway, to see what the little oddball wanted. He asked, "Hey, mister, is there any way you could give me a ride to Park Street? It's just a few blocks up." I had never even heard of this street before, but I had no intention on asking any more about it. I told him that I was in a hurry and wouldn't be able to give him a ride. The boy then tried to assure me that where he was going was in the same direction as my destination and would only be a few minutes. Again, I declined him. No, don't think that I'm not a good Samaritan. I've done my fair share of charity work. It's just in that moment, I knew if I were to let this person in my car, the outcome wouldn't be good. The boy then started to become more anxious and even upset that I wasn't agreeing to the ride. "Come on, mister. It's not like I have a weapon or anything. If you let me in, I'll even let you pat me down." Now, when he said that, I started to really get nervous. Not only does him offering a pat down sound like a type of entrapment waiting to happen, but the way he said that he didn't have a weapon didn't sound quite right to me. When he said, "It's not like I have a weapon," it sounded more like he was saying, "It's not like I need a weapon." My response to him was, "Sorry, I don't give rides to minors. There's too many legal ramifications that could arise." The next thing the kid said was the last straw. His words were, "Look, just tell me you'll give me the ride. You don't have to really give me the ride or anything. Just say that you give me permission to go with you. If you do that, I'll stop bugging you." Immediately I replied, "Sorry, kid," rolled up my windows and ran the red light. Of course, there was a cop around to witness my transgression. Who knows? Maybe it was a big setup. At first, I felt relieved to see him, but that soon dissipated once he handed me a ticket. I think telling him about the black-eyed kid and the insanely long red light may have caused him to give me that. He acted as if I was trying to lie myself out of a fine. Go figure. "That's an interesting story," replies Gina with a smile. "Although I think you may have overreacted. I mean, the kid was probably wearing those Halloween contact lenses that make the eyes appear dark. You said he was wearing all black too. Maybe it was his style." "Oh no, if you were there, Gina, you'd realize that there was something evil and maybe even unworldly about that boy. I'm sure he was evil in child form. Besides, as I was driving here, I realized that part spelled backwards is trap. He was leading me to a trap." Now laughing, Gina sarcastically replies, "Wow, let's be sure to tell everyone to beware of this terrible evil that is lurking about." John, still with a very serious face, calmly replies, "If only you were there. It's getting late. I best get going. Honestly though, I still feel nervous driving by myself, especially now that it's dark." "Don't worry," Gina smirks. "I doubt the spooky lad is going to get you." John walks out of Gina's apartment and into the elevator. Suddenly, a young girl runs up. To his horror, the girl had the same black eyes. Sir, can you please let me in the elevator?" the youngster asks. Immediately, John hits the door close button, which doesn't react. The young lady, now strangely standing in front of the open doors, asks, "May I ride down with you?" Not knowing how to respond, John hits the door close button one more time to no avail. He walks out of the elevator and answers, "You know what? I think I'll take the stairs." I don't know what's worse. The screams that ended a few weeks ago, or the silence that has fallen since. Before, I felt like everything should be done to help others. Now, in my self-reflection, I don't know anymore. It was like any other day in the city. Sunny, crowded, and busy. I was walking to work at a large national bank, where I recently began an internship. I remember the day very well, because besides the obvious fact that the world ended on this day, I had finally convinced myself to talk to the cute secretary across the hall from me. Things just seemed to be going my way that day. I walked to work every day, and the flow of traffic was straight my direction. That's when the alarms sounded. There was a mass panic as is expected. I watched as thousands of people ran in hysteria, all going absolutely nowhere. Some of the people ran for the subway, anything deep in the ground. There's only so many places to go, and as I stated before, people weren't getting very far. The only option I really had was to follow all those going into the subway. There were some military personnel in the corridor, instructing us down the tunnel, wearing full military gas suits like they were equipped for some sort of bio-air attack. You couldn't see their faces at all, and they looked ominous. Some people were crying, and the children were screaming as their parents dragged them into the ever-darkening tunnel. It must have been a few hours that I walked in the darkness with crowds of people before more military personnel, dressed in similar attire as described before, signaled us to turn left into a behemoth vault. The characters N77R2D805 were written across some of the steelwork. I was lucky enough to have gotten in because I heard gunshots after walking through the metal frames, and the large bronze-looking doors were shut behind us. More screams could be heard outside, and more gunshots. Things got quiet outside after a few minutes. The explosions began around 15 minutes later. The sound was deafening, and the ground shook like the gods themselves were trying to kill us. The children continued to scream through it all, and continued long after. The thing that disturbed me the most was the lack of noise outside. Things remained quiet in the vault for the next few days. People talked about what it was that might have happened on the outside, and the general consensus was that a nuclear explosion had detonated on the surface. It was a miracle that we were still alive, to be honest. There was a small cafeteria for us, but it was obviously overwhelmed by the amount of refugees here. The food rations were fairly small and seemed inhumane, though we all knew there wasn't enough to go around. It was around the third or fourth day that noises began to come from outside of the vault. The soldiers were instructed by the superiors not to open the doors for any reasons, and I think we were all thankful for that. None of us wanted to see what was on the other side, especially now when we heard their pleas. "We know you're in there. You have to let us in. Help us. We're dying out here. Do something. For the love of God, help." Their cries went on for around 3 hours before the gunshots sounded on the other side of the door. I don't want to know who those shots came from, but we were all glad for the quiet. After a week more, the voices were back. This time they cursed and threatened us all on the inside. They went on to say that once they were on the inside, they'd eat our flesh and suck the marrow from our bones like a straw. I tried not to let it get to me, but it wasn't working. The voices followed me into my dreams and caused me horrible nightmares. I dreamt I was on the outside, in the probably leveled city, being chased by subhumans trying to eat me. I know they're just dreams, but who knows if that's too far off from reality. Recently, the leaders of the vault had all agreed that our rations would be halved. There was protest, and a small faction tried to make the cafeteria. There was protest, and a small faction tried to take the cafeteria, but they were all shot. I've been hoarding the food I've gotten in my bag for work. Like I said, there's not a lot of it, but I stow away what I can. They are inside the vault, and they're not human. I caught a glimpse of them as I ran through the corridors, and those things are not human. They have horrible green glowing eyes, and their hairless skin is yellow. I locked eyes with one of them. And in that moment, I felt the hatred that he, or it, felt for me. A step, 2 steps, and then finally, a burst of rounds into its head from his left. I didn't stop to wait and greet my savior. I ran. I ran as fast and as hard as I could. You'll probably think me a coward for what I'm about to say, but I don't care. I arrived in the cafeteria and went straight for the kitchen. Breakfast was just being served, so one of the storerooms wasn't locked up, and no one was around. I locked the giant door behind me and listened to the carnage outside of my door. Some shots continued to ring through the next couple hours, and were silenced. I spent my time taking stock of what food I had, and it was enough to survive for, let's just say, a hell of a long time. A soldier lay inside near the door with his rifle to his front, and his sidearm was holstered. I grabbed the sidearm and pocketed it. I've been in this storm room for longer than I can keep track. By the amount of cans stacked against the wall, I can only guess a month. The corpse in the room began to rot a long time ago, and the stench is horrendous. It fills my nostrils day and night. The worst of it is they know I'm here. They know I've locked myself in this room, and they keep telling me that I'm going to die here. I'm going to die in this room. This is the place, they whisper to me in my sleep, that they will peel my eyelids off my head and rip my fingers off one by one. I spend the days curled up in the corner, watching the man rot, wishing my hell would end. I've thought to myself many times that I could just shoot myself in the temple, and then this nightmare would go away. The food is dwindling, and the idea is more and more tempting. Those hollow things call my name. In my loneliness, I told them who I was. They told me to open the door, and that it will all be over. Those hollow, inhuman things tell me to end it, end the torture on my own terms. They have one thing right. Tomorrow, when I wake up, I'm ending it on my own terms. Hey guys, it's me, Sir Pent. I just wanted to stop in here while the credits are rolling and let you know that I do appreciate all the liking and sharing that you've been doing to my videos recently. It means a lot, and it's the reason my channel's kind of blown up a little bit over the past couple weeks. We went from 30 subscribers to 200 in like 3 weeks, and that's kind of insane. So if you want to keep, seeing the channel grow like that, and, keep building up the amount of comments we see on each video, I think you should keep doing what you're doing, because, you're good at it looks like. So, no, that's it though. Keep it spooky.